Hello booktubers and super friends, Roy here on my channel Roy Reads Anything, and I'm back with Dr. Jennie in close proximity to talk about some occult detectives, because Occult Detective October, that great event devised by MJ, it's got a sort of afterlife, appropriately enough. So they're going to talk about some books I started reading during that hallowed month, and I thought, oh well, I might as well read them all. It's a series of 3 books, so I thought, well, if I read them all I can tell people about them a bit more fulsomely than if I just read one and said all the others look good as well. So that's what I'm going to do. So these are a series of 3 books from the 1970s. By an author called John Burke. So John Burke, incredibly prolific. He wrote some mysteries, he wrote some SF, he wrote an awful lot of novelisations, including some that I've talked about on here and will talk about on here. But outside of the world of novelisations, he also wrote some supernatural stuff, including these 3 books came out sort of mid to late 70s. They're badged as Dr. Caspian and Bronwen. So there's 2 people, could equally be Dr. and Mrs. Caspian or Alexander and Bronwen. But yes, a duo of occult detectives. And I can only imagine that this is sort of the stuff he loved to do, you know, who knows, he might have loved doing his novelisations, but I just think that probably creating your own occult detectives could be more fun than novelising an episode of Band of Gold.
Oh God,
or
really?
Or The Bill.
Oh no.
Anyway, yes, so Dr. Caspian and Bronwen. So it's set in the 19th century, and the first book was called The Devil's Footsteps, and it's absolutely folk horror, set in a village called Hexney. There's an interesting thing going on with footmarks in the mud approaching the village, and something terrible is going to happen. Is it terrible, or is it something that the villagers are actually desiring? So we meet the 2 characters, because there's been a bit of kerfuffle, because Bronwen Powys, as she then is a photographer. And a bit of a new woman.
Oh, she blue stocking.
Well, not really. She's a bit more active, I suppose.
Right,
you know, but
got
she's
a push bike.
I think she might have actually. Yeah. Yes, I think we do see scenes of cycling. So shocking to the actual Victorians. So she's being like driven out of the village by angry villagers, and Dr. Caspian, who's this kind of opera cloak wearing, Malin streak having, bearded fellow, appears. And there's an interesting inversion, because at this point you think, well, he's a magician, obviously. He's going to be like the one who's into the occult stuff. And she's like a sort of progressive woman into photography, technology. She'll be like the skeptic, you know, in a kind of Mulder and Scully kind of way. But it's actually the other way around. Because this Alexander Caspian, yes, he's a magician, he's a stage magician. And he does not believe in the supernatural. And in fact, he has a bit of a sideline of debunking occult things that turn out to be hoaxes, or ripping people off with things like fake seances and things like that.
I think was not unusual in Victorian, the stage magicians being brought in to decide whether or not someone was genuinely a medium. Because
part of the shtick is he can show, well, I can do all of this.
I can do that, and it's not magic.
But it's not magic. It's magic in the prestidigitation sense, you know. So he's that kind of guy, whereas Bronwen, 7th daughter of a 7th daughter, is kind of, has sort of sensitivities, and is, you know, a lot more open to the sort of occult things being real. But it turns out that they're both psychic, and they both communicate with each other with their minds. So I mean,
how is that again?
with their minds.
With their minds.
A bit like us, really. So he believes in that bit because it's actually happening. So they end up, they're sort of, there's a little bit of an enemies to friends thing. And the threat, the jeopardy comes from this village. Bronwen can't leave it. You know, she will set out to leave and somehow not have left.
No.
Stuff like that.
Interesting.
And it's building up to some kind of strange ceremony. Yeah, it's got all that sort of Wickermanish kind of stuff going on, but it's done really well. I really enjoyed reading it, and the footsteps thing's good. It's got this sort of weirdness of place. There's deep time, too much history is a quote I wrote down. Ancient patterns, and the sort of growing relationship between Dr. Caspian and Bronwen, which culminates in some Kabbalistic lovemaking. So
the higher magic.
When the squelchiness happens, not just the normal things happen, also their intertwined consciousnesses are rising through the Sephiroth of the Tree of Life. Moving on to the second novel, The Black Charade.
Were they sky-clad at any point?
Well, probably.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know,
who knows?
Victorians,
Who knows?
so
Yeah. They sent telegrams to each other. Well, they can communicate with their minds, but not over huge distances.
Yeah,
so, but it's an interesting sort of power. So, next one, we're in London, and Caspian still does his big stage show, still does his debunking stuff. They're now married, which is good. And the jeopardy in this one is a cult luring people willingly to their deaths. So people are like, I've been summoned, this is going to be great. And they die. So it's a kind of a life extension thing. There's an immortal femme fatale. There's some sort of John of Leyden is involved somehow, the self-proclaimed Anabaptist king, and it's a good thriller. There's lots of
no relation to John Leyden.
No, though it has been noted the similarity.
Yeah,
it's Leyden, the place.
Leyden,
where some terrible things happened. So the sort of previous life stuff, that's really good, and part of the thing is to try and stop like a young woman becoming the latest victim of this kind of come and, you know, give me your life essence sort of stuff. So I was stoked to read the third one. The third one is called Ladygrove. Now, if you're thinking Ladygrove,
which of course we all are,
you wouldn't be far off really from the mark, shall we say, because it's kind of got a sort of an evil birth kind of idea, or sort of the idea of fertility is going to be turned into something terrible. One of those. Not
one of those rapidly maturing baby plots.
No, well, I'm trying not to give any spoilers, but no, with these, no, it's more the sort of Earth Mother figure turned into something terrifying.
Right.
So it's like goddess worship gone bad, I suppose. So Ladygrove is a stately home. It's in Hereford, which is a sort of it's on the borders, makes a border between England and Wales. And if you've read Phil Rickman's novels, they're set in that sort of liminal territory. And it does feel like that, I can say, having been there. So now Alexandra and Bronwen, they've become a kind of endearing odd couple. They're friends of some youngsters who have inherited this this stately home, although they're seen as kind of oddballs. And then there's this again, it's moving towards something terrible. There's a sinister maze.
I thought you were going to say a sinister maid.
That's also a thing. Because
there are also them.
Yeah. No, there might be sinister maize. We don't hear much from them. There's some sinister swine. A herd.
Oh no!
A herd of sinister swine. Rare breeds.
If you're not careful.
Well, as it turns out, yeah, and a sinister swine herd and a sinister swine building house. Also, an anchoress. You remember those women who were immured in a cell for religious reasons? So again, this is like that, but it's all gone horribly wrong. Back in the past.
Can I say a little bit about anchorite?
Yeah, give us the anchorite skinny.
The anchorite vista. It always sounds horrible walled up in a cell, as if it's a terrible punishment, and as if it's like being put in a wall cavity and bricked up inside. And that wasn't really what happened. What they were immured in was a commodious, in some cases, room with heat and stuff, a window to the outside and a window to the inside, and they'd have a maid who would bring their food.
Right, yeah.
Probably, I think, do their like washing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And through the window to the outside, they would dispense advice.
Okay.
So they were kind of like an agony auntie.
Yeah.
Or an agony anchorite.
And I guess getting like fed and looked after in perpetuity was quite a good deal in some ways.
Yes, and it wasn't done as a terrible. Well, it might have been used as a punishment sometimes, but it was because that woman was called, had a calling to be an anchorite.
Yeah. I
And
guess,
there were male anchorites as well.
Right, yeah.
Doing exactly the same sort of thing. So yeah, that's my anchorite wisdom that I've got.
Well, I guess in this, it's kind of more like the imagined version, where it's a bit squalid and people fear her as much as revere her. Yeah.
Yeah, I suspect the truth probably falls
Well,
some way
yeah.
in between, but maybe closer to the good end and then maybe, I don't know.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's turning a historical thing into a bit of a sort of gothic trope, I suppose. So you got your century-spanning family curse. There was some good, rather Jamesian stuff where scholarship is used to sort of figure out what's going on. And the clock's ticking on the supernatural menace and the baby and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, really good. So no need to kick the table. 3 books. I wouldn't really call it a trilogy. I mean, yes, it sort of fits together, and it's probably best to read them in order. But it's not like a story arc completes within the 3. Who knows? He might have wanted to write more. But I think they're worthy addition to the occult detective canon, worth seeking out. They're currently available from Wildside Press, and lots of funky old paperbacks as well, with corn dollies and things on the front. So
Did you just say paperbacks?
I might have said paperbacks. Yeah.
Because I find that hilarious for some reason. Best note to myself.
Okay. Paperbacks. We will be paperly back pretty soon.
Bye everybody.